Hey guys, welcome to another video where today we were going to be discussing a very interesting topic, and not really, it's an interesting topic that I don't really see going around for the Elden Ring community, and I imagine it's for a lot of reasons, right? But you may have seen videos where it's all like, oh, would the boys or would the Seven survive the Justice League? Would the Seven survive Omni-Man? Could Black Noir defeat Arkham Knight Batman? And now I'm like, wait, why isn't there anyone talking about Elden Ring, huh? Can Homelander survive Elden Ring? Alright, let's just get right to it. Alright, no, we don't need to create some crazy backstory where somehow there was a milky portal and Homelander walked through it to find himself in the lands between, and now he's getting guided by the grace of gold. He's not a tarnish per se, but he still sees the grace of gold, and he decides to follow it. And when he follows it, he's gonna meet his first opponent, Margit. Margit the Fell Omen. So does Homelander have a chance against Margit the Fell Omen? Well, we have to remember who Margit the Fell Omen is. Margit is an illusion of sorts, branched off from Morgott, the Omen King, right? So this is a weaker version than Morgott, but still, we should take note that Morgott actually, at some point, had Radahn pinned down. That's crazy. Had a prime Radahn pinned down sometime during the Shattering War, I guess. There's an image. I think it's from the intro, actually, of the game, where you can see that Morgott has Radahn pinned down with his cane staff, wooden branch thing. Which, prime Radahn, that's crazy. So Morgott himself is crazy, right? So does Homelander have a chance against Margit? It's really hard to say, honestly, because, I think the thing with Elden Ring and why no one really picks up Elden Ring for these type of ideas is the idea of feats, right? People always say, oh, this character can beat this character because of this feat, right? And with Elden Ring, there's not really any crazy feats that you can really discuss, unless it's like very sketchy stuff, like Radahn holding up the stars. It means he's like a small moon level or something. It reminds me, back when I was on TikTok, I would always follow this guy who would always put Malenia against every character in fiction, no matter who it was. It was pretty good, honestly. It was pretty funny seeing people's reactions to everything. And there was some crazy, Malenia fans, I guess, that they were like, oh yeah, Malenia took on Radahn could hold up the stars, so Malenia could easily defeat Supergirl. So could Homelander do it? Maybe. I mean, his lasers was able to cut down an airplane, so the lasers are definitely carrying, So if Homelander does get his lasers in, the Margit's gonna go down, I think. Same thing with Godrick. Since Godrick is like the weakest shard bearer, he is a shard bearer, so he's tough, but we know he's the most cowardice shard bearer. He hides with all the maidens when the Shattering War happens. He hides in the castle. He lets Godwin's body absolutely wreck the castle, as well as the castle has a bunch of holes in it from the Shattering War. He got wrecked by Malenia, right? And yeah, it's Malenia, so of course he would get wrecked by Malenia. But he got wrecked by Malenia so badly that he was begging. He was on his knees begging, licking her boots for his life, you know. So so I would say Godrick the Grafted would definitely be taken out by Homelander. I think Homelander would definitely have problems, but can you imagine that fight where Homelander and Godrick meet, right? And Godrick's like, I command thee, kneel, right? And then Homelander is just absolutely lasering Godrick's arms, right? Will Godrick even get a chance to put on the dragon arm? Maybe, maybe not. Even if he does, I mean, I think that's when Homelander might have some troubles, but even then, Homelander might be able to take him out before second phase, in my opinion. Okay, so what about Rennala? Or sorry, Rennala. I always seem to get that name wrong somehow. Oh yeah, I always seem to switch it up with her sister somehow. It's crazy. But could Homelander take on Rennala? Absolutely not. Rennala in her prime days could summon absolute armies with her magic, right? I mean, we've seen what Rennala can do with her magic, and Rennala's a knight, right? So she's half magic, half knight, right? You know, like a strength dex int build maybe, like a dex int build, really, right? Well, Rennala is a full imp build, so could you imagine Rennala at her full potential, right? Could you imagine Rennala at her full potential? If Rennala was at her full potential, Homelander's dead. Homelander's dead, like, instantly. The best I could describe it would be like if Victoria Newman activated her power on Homelander. I don't know if he's immune to that. I haven't seen the final season, but if he isn't immune to that, Rennala could just do the same thing, you know, cast some glintstone sniper spell. And it's over. It's over for Homelander, honestly. But Homelander could possibly win this because Rennala is not in her prime. Rennala is not even close to her prime, honestly. Even when Ronnie casts the illusion spell and we seem to get somewhat of a prime Rennala, right? Even then, she doesn't seem remotely close to her greatness back during the war with the Golden Tree Boys, you know, Radahn and all that shit, you know, not even close. Like, remember, Rennala was fighting off against Radahn and the whole Golden Order, right? That was crazy. That's crazy, right? That's what you gotta remember. And so, Homelander could easily maybe take her out. The only problem I imagine him having is trying to get through her force field. Of course, everyone knows you have to take out the juvenile scholars, you have to take out the children. In order to get to Rennala, if Homelander figures this out, or he just decides to go berserk in that entire library until Rennala's shield breaks, Rennala's actually done for. Like, Rennala would get ripped in half the moment her shield is broken. Like, before Ronnie's illusion even activates, before Ronnie could say, you know, let everyone know Rennala's a boss, a girl boss. Now, here's where I think Homelander either struggles and wins, or struggles and dies. Radahn. Radahn isn't even in his prime, and even though he is not even in his prime, and not even in his true prime, in the DLC, by the way, people say, oh, that is prime Radahn. But, prime Radahn was bigger. I mean, if you look at Radahn, normal Radahn is bigger than prime Radahn. Prime Radahn was just bigger, but DLC Radahn, a bit smaller. Probably because Mohg's body was not that big. It was not as buff as Radahn's body, I suppose. If I had to take a gander, I guess, right? But Radahn, affected by the Scarlet Rot. I mean, he's heavily weakened, but he's still a strong opponent. I mean, it takes literally the Tarnished and all of the other summons that the Tarnished can grab in order to defeat one giant man on a horse. So, put that in perspective, Alexander the Greatjar, when he was fighting Radahn, he felt as if he was going to crack at any moment, right? He literally did. And soon we're gonna talk about the future bosses. And Alexander is gonna be a great example of why Homelander is not going to make it in the future bosses. But we're still gonna discuss them anyways because it's fun. But yeah, Alexander, boom, right? Like, and if you've ever fought Radahn with those summons only, that Radahn wipes them out quickly. Like, the only people who survive is Alexander, the bull goat armor man, and Blythe, right? They're tanks, so they can take hits, but the fact that they're tanks, and even Alexander was like, oh, I'm about to break at any moment. He was cracking open and needed to get the bodies of everyone around him in order to even survive. If you take that in mind, it's actually crazy, because later Alexander is going to be fighting the Fire Giant with us, and if you put that in mind, sure, Alexander did kind of like train his body a bit more. He consumed a lot of more bodies to regain his strength. Then he sat in lava to get even more strength. But still, it kind of puts it into perspective how strong Alexander is and why he's a good measurement for like how far is Homelander. We're gonna make it really. So yeah, Radahn versus Homelander. They're both gonna fire at long-range weapons, but I think Homelander will be able to use his lasers to shoot out any arrows that Radahn tries to blast his way. That or Homelander dies to like the first arrow, and because he just can't react fast enough. That's always a possibility, which would be crazy. Honestly, imagine just an image of Homelander getting impaled by the first arrow from Radahn. That insane. And honestly, if they were to go head to head after doing their long range battle, if they were going to go head like toe to toe, I really don't know if Homelander would survive this fight, just due to how brutal Radahn is in battle. Along with his gravity magic, Homelander can just fly away this time. He's pinned, dude. Like, actually, Radahn is actually gonna be the worst fight for Homelander, and it's not even close, dude. Especially with his swords. Imagine getting slammed with those swords while getting pulled in with gravity magic, and your Homelander of all people, buddy. Ooh, I would not want to be him. Yeah, and Homelander could probably put in some strong hits against him. There's a chance. I mean, humans like the Tarnished are able to do damage against Radahn. So if an advanced like superhuman like Homelander does a punch or two, I'm sure he could knock down Radahn, or at the very least knock him back from before getting hit by a lot of hits, right? That's my idea of the fight anyways, but it would seem like Homelander would struggle in this, and there's definitely more of a chance of him losing the fight than him actually winning the fight against Radahn. Regal Ancestor Spirit. Yeah, that deer is gonna lose. Sorry, Regal Ancestor Spirit. Sorry, yeah, rest in peace, buddy. Okay, now we reach Morgott, the Omen King. Now, like I said before earlier, Morgott was actually able to pin down Prime Radahn, dude, with that to me is insane, and I'm sure for everyone that's pretty crazy too. Because I think a lot of people in the Elden Ring community, they see Radahn as probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest, opponents, characters in Elden Ring. Honestly, Malenia being one of up there, you know. So the fact that Morgott could pin down a prime Radahn is insane. And when you think about it, then there would be no shot if Morgott could take down Radahn in his prime, and Homelander would struggle against Radahn who's not in his prime. I 100% believe Morgott could take down Homelander, right? With ease, and not even have to go to second phase, by the way. With Morgott, I genuinely think Morgott is one of the coolest boss fights in Elden Ring, in my opinion, and he's so cool, and obviously he's so powerful that he is the guardian of the Erd Tree, essentially, the guardian of thrones, and the I don't know, the outer gods, the greater will, kind of decided that he would be fit to pass on with the Erd Tree, right? No more horns when he dies. He's with the Erd Tree now, you know, to be reincarnated, I guess. However that works. So that's great for him, honestly, and that kind of just represents how powerful, how noble he is for being a creature deemed low in the society he's in. And Homelander would look at this creature and would definitely underestimate Morgott, you know, especially since he's already taken down Margit. So this guy is just Morgott, but like real this time, you know. So Homelander's definitely going to underestimate Morgott, but then when Morgott actually proves to be beating his ass, Homelander's gonna struggle, and he might die in this fight. That's just the truth of it. He might actually die in this fight, and he would be done forever. Like, I don't really see a way Homelander wins this fight other than using his lasers, you know, spamming his lasers from afar. And he could win a lot of the fights like that, but what is he up against? Well, let's go to Mohg, Morgott's brother. Mohg can fly, okay? So Homelander can no longer fly to escape the wrath of these Elden Ring bosses that are kicking his asses, right? So Homelander would have to basically learn on the fly, no pun intended, would have to learn on the fly to learn flight combat, essentially, when fighting Mohg, especially when Mohg enters his second phase, and even before Mohg enters his second phase. First phase might actually be a struggle for Homelander. I mean, it was a struggle for me when I played, so Homelander might take down quite a few of these bosses just because of speed, right? You have to remember, Homelander is kind of fast. you know, he ain't a slow flyer, so his speed, it does give him an edge over these bosses. But that's just because, you know, we've seen Elden Ring bosses fight, and mostly they're slow, especially in the base game, they're slow, which gets different when we get to the DLC bosses, which, well, oh boy, oh boy. Homelander's struggling with Mohg. I mean, you know, do the math, fellas. So, with that said, Homelander, does he beat Mohg? Probably not, honestly. Mohg could just bleed him to death. Mohg would actually just bleed him to death while Homelander can't do anything. That phase transition that Mohg does, like, let's say Homelander does somehow get Mohg down to the second phase, that phase transition would absolutely demolish Homelander, because he doesn't know anything about the random physic crystal tier you can get from Timbuktu, right? No, of course he doesn't know about that. So when he's in the fight, he thinks he's gonna win. Boom! Knee heel, buddy. Homelander's down for the count. probably won't even be able to defeat Mohg and proceed onto the DLC, unfortunately. Now, Fire Giant. Fire Giant is interesting to me because Fire Giant is, for really basic terms here, he's a god. We learned from Alexander after Alexander fights him that he felt as if the Fire Giant could absolutely crack him at any moment. Even after his hard work training, even after like powering up with the bodies, Alexander was still almost useless in the fight, actually. I think he even admits this because it literally, to him, it felt like he was fighting a god. So how does Homelander take on a god? It's a bit of a question. I personally think, maybe because I'm biased and I don't like Fire Giant, I personally think Homelander could just laser him as he's been doing before. Just spam lasers while far away until Fire Giant might second phase. Maybe he does in second phase. Like Homelander goes straight for the head, right? Goes straight for the brain, whatever can take out Fire Giant the quickest, right? Because Fire Giant does, for the most part, have a very human anatomy. Sure, that eye is there, but maybe that means the brain is behind his stomach, and if that is true, Homelander might go for the eye in the stomach. He might not, But let's say Fire Giant did go to second phase and started to sacrifice his leg for the foul flame god. Homelander's done. If a Homelander gets hit by one fire blast, I don't imagine him being I imagine him being super resistant to fire, right? But I'm more concerned about the idea that it's just the power of the blast themselves, not really the fire portion of it all, that will get him, the explosion part, right? That'll just keep blasting him. And if they don't even hurt him, Homelander, which I think they would hurt him, even if it's a little bit, if those blasts were to hurt Homelander, or just knock him down, that could give Fire Giant an option. Like, it would give him leeway to be on Homelander while he's down. And maybe it's because I really am biased against Fire Giant here, but I imagine Homelander, if he doesn't get knocked down, he wins the fight. But if Fire Giant is not able to knock down Homelander, it's over for Fire Giant. Lichdragon Fortissax. Lichdragon Fortissax is an interesting fight. Homelander probably wouldn't even meet Fia or Fortissax ever. There's no reason for him to do it. He's just following the grace of gold, and he's probably trying to take over the world, because he sees this world and it's like, oh, it looks like a medieval world. He could probably just take it over as a god or something. Imagine, right? So that's all he's doing. I have doubt he would meet the Lichdragon Fortissax, but if he were to meet the Lichdragon Fortissax, it would be over for him unless, once again, Homelander flies away. But we're fighting a dragon here, so Homelander's not going to be able to fly away without getting pounced on by the dragon. But the reason why Homelander would fly away at all is because of the Lich Dragon's Death Blight. That's right, the Death Blight lightning attacks. Those would not only damage Homelander, the lightning themselves would probably super damage him, if not kill him overall. The Death Blight would get to him, and Homelander would not know what Death Blight is, but I feel like if Death Blight was a real thing, like with the build-up and all, you would feel it. You would feel the Death Blight getting to you, and it's definitely supported by the fact that Rogier was feeling the effects, and sure, it was slowly, but in battle, you could probably definitely feel the effects quicker than Rogier did. It'd be having like whiplash due to how quick those effects would be going. I don't imagine Homelander winning this fight, but if Homelander were to win the fight, it would be to spam lasers once again. Lasers once again being super overpowered, but how overpowered? It's hard to tell really. Could his lasers break through dragon scales? Maybe not. They are as hard as stone, but when you think about it, Homelander did destroy like an airplane, which Homelander would be disintegrated instantly. That's not even close. Astel, Naturalborn of the Void. Naturalborn of the Void. Astel, Naturalborn of the Void, is an interesting fight, and while I think it would be super fun to see illustrated, I would say Homelander could win this one. The only problem would be the Astel's pincer attacks and the gravity magic as well. If he gets grabbed by gravity, it would hurt Homelander, in my opinion, and the pincers would definitely cut Homelander in half, for sure. But I think Homelander wins that fight. Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy. This fight is interesting. I imagine Rykard being somewhat resistant to fire, and I imagine Homelander's lasers are kind of fire-based in some way or the other. They're definitely heat-based, right? Heat vision, that's the classic term for it, right? But Rykard literally lives in like in a volcano, so I doubt how useful that would be, especially considering Rykard, while it's not impossible, Rykard needs to be killed with the Serpent Hunter weapon thingy. And like I said, while it's not impossible, it's definitely difficult for some random Tarnished to just go ahead and be like, I'm going to defeat you, Rykard! And with no Serpent Hunter, like the pro gamers could do it easy, alright? But could Homelander do it without the Serpent Hunter? Could he do it? My answer would be no, honestly. Especially once Rykard reaches second phase and he gets his sword of blasphemy, his blasphemous greatsword, whatever it's called. And once he starts swinging, it's over. It's over for Homelander. One swing of the blade, and I think Homelander is gonna join the pile of gore that is laced on Rykard's sword. Godfrey. Godfrey is a very interesting one. I think it's a super interesting fight for Homelander, because in a way, Godfrey and Homelander are kind of similar. They're respectively somewhat the leader of the humans in some way or another, the symbol of humans anyways. And while Homelander is obviously evil, an evil guy, and of course he doesn't represent all humans, there's a bunch of problems with me saying that, but he kind of represents the peak humanity, essentially, despite his horrible character. But so is Hoarah. Hoarah is basically peak humanity until the Tarnish comes in. Look how buff he is. He even became like the second consort, Or shit, was it the first consort? Was he the first consort of my... I forget. It's fine though. He was a consort of America, and he served the Golden Order. As well as participating in many wars, in basically subjugating all of the land, of the lands between. So, the war against the fire giants, war against the dragons, he was in those wars. I think he was in the war against the dragons. I know Godwin was, though, but we all know Godwin was. So Godfrey, not only does he have the strength and the speed to back up his power, he has basically the combat experience. And if Homelander and Godfrey were to fight, they could be equal in power, which is a weird thing to say, right? Because we can't really scale Godfrey's power. But he fights fire giants, and if Alexander says like the fire giant was like fighting a god, then that Godfrey is like similar to that of a god, and Homelander loves to think himself akin to a god. So they would be somewhat similar in power, or And I like the idea of this. Or Godfrey comes in, right? And he second phases maybe. Maybe he's like, oh, okay. I've given you courtesy enough, Homelander, buddy. I've given you courtesy enough, right? He activates his Horalu form and absolutely humbles Homelander. Homelander, maybe he starts begging for forgiveness, starts giving up, runs away. He's something, right? But I really think that is such a funny idea. I would definitely say it would be an even match. Where Godfrey would win would be in his combat power, in his combat ability, his combat skills, because Homelander can't fight for shit. So imagine this. Horalu grabs Homelander and suplexes him to death. That would be the end of Homelander's run, if it wasn't already, due to Morgott or Mohg or any of the other tough bosses. I forgot to mention this one. I skipped this one. Maybe it's because we both know who's winning this fight. Maliketh. The Black Blade? No, is that right? I don't think that's right. Maybe it is right. Maliketh. Dude, if Homelander faces off against Maliketh, I feel like I shouldn't even bring this up. To me, it's obvious that Homelander doesn't win this fight. Not even close. Not even remotely close. As much as we would like to think that Homelander could even stand a chance, I think the moment Maliketh uses anything that long range with the Destined Death ability, Homelander's gonna get hit, and while Destined Death is gonna do its thing, it's gonna kill Homelander for good. I genuinely think he doesn't even get past Maliketh. Rest in peace. Now is the fight we've all been waiting for. Could Homelander possibly go up against Malenia, Blade of Miquella, go toe-to-toe with Malenia, Blade of Miquella, maybe throw a punch and absolutely destroy Malenia, Blade of Miquella? Now, the question is, are you crazy? Because Malenia struggled with Prime Radahn. Morgott was pinned Prime Radahn down. If you put all these factors together, remember how I said that I believe that Homelander struggles against Morgott, and not even Prime Radahn, but the broken version of Radahn, Starscourge Radahn, right? He doesn't even win against those two. Can you imagine a fight against Malenia? Malenia, who has seemingly been fighting in her dreams, possibly other tarnished in her dreams, and when she faces us, she loses, of course, because we're the main character, but in the dreams, she's most likely fighting other tarnished, so she's not even rusty, dude. She's not even rusty, and she still has the Scarlet Rot God ability. She has the power to become a god in her second phase. So does Homelander beat her at first phase? I can see Homelander beating her first phase, but once he thinks he ended the fight, Malenia is going to enter second phase. Homelander is going to witness true horror.